Hi, this is Remembering the Past, the show where we talk about people who've died recently who've had a profound effect on our history, our society, or our culture. We're going to start out tonight with two people who were accomplished in show business, but perhaps better known for who they were related to. The first is Jayne Meadows, who died recently at the age of 95. She was a stage and screen actress, but she's better known for being the wife of Steve Allen and part of his troupe of actors. In addition, she was the look-alike sister of Audrey Meadows, who of course was Alice on The Honeymooners. Jayne Meadows had done some work in movies and on Broadway, but in 1954, after Steve Allen divorced his first wife, they married. They had a happy marriage for a long time, and as I said, she became part of his late-night comedy troupe, and they also did a nice historical program where they would portray famous figures from history. Here's a little bit about the marriage of Steve Allen and Jayne Meadows.
Not long after his divorce from Dorothy, he attended a dinner party where he met an actress named Jayne Meadows.
I took one look at him, and you know I'm very nearsighted, and I said to myself, if he's not married, he's going to be someday, and to me. And 2 years later, almost to the day, we were married. Except I have to tell you the truth, unbeknownst to me, he was sort of engaged to another woman, but she was in California. And she was a lot older than he and wasn't right for Steve, and he knew it. And after, I guess I knew him for maybe a couple of weeks, it was obvious that both of us felt the same way. But we waited 2 years.
He was doing game shows at the time like What's My Line, and in fact, the day after they were married, she was the mystery guest. Remember, they're all blindfolded when they ask her questions.
Would you say you are very well known for something that you performed yesterday, not on television? You're the girl that got the fella that all the girls that watch television wish they got. You're Jayne Meadows, Allen?
That's right. I must say that I know I speak for all of my colleagues on the panel, for everybody that knows you both, we all love you, and for all the folks outside who watch you both. We wish for you a long and a very happy married life. And thanks for being our guest.
Well, they did have a long, happy marriage. She gave up some of her career voluntarily, and here 30 years later, she talks about it.
I think there is nothing that Steve could possibly do that would make me divorce him.
Now she tells me. I just blew 25 years of wildness.
No, but it's true, because I would just say anybody who criticized or belittled Steve was a moron, was beneath me. I wouldn't pay any attention to them. Mm-hmm. I would overlook it.
Okay.
They're stupid, is what they are. They're stupid people.
Don't get angry now.
And later in life, they performed together and wrote books together, and she told a funny story about it.
Well, one day I was in Bullock's, because they're the ones that have them, and I didn't even see our portrait, and I was on my way to buy something, and a woman rushed past me with her husband. She said, "It's over here, it's over here, it's over here somewhere." And they stopped in front of our portrait, and I had no makeup on. The hair was back in a ponytail. I was in blue jeans, and I heard her say, "Oh, look at them. Aren't they gorgeous?" And I went, just like I hit my head. I ran the other way. I thought if she ever saw me, as I really am, and if they ever asked me for my autograph like that, I sign Audrey Meadows.
Later on in life, she had bit parts in television series like Homicide: Life on the Street and St. Elsewhere. She played herself in Casino, her marriage to Steve Allen, and when they were out in Las Vegas. But I think her best role was in The Meeting of the Minds, the Steve Allen show, where he got actors and actresses to play historical figures, and she played Catherine the Great.
Well, there's a point there, yes. Speaking of your husband, Peter, Your Majesty, in your memoirs, you describe your marriage as a disaster, but was there never any love between you and your husband?
There was a kind of love I felt for Peter initially, an adolescent love. I, the tomboy, was the friend he never had. My high spirits raised his depressions, and he envied my dexterity at sports. In his troubled way, I believe that he was fond of me too. Oh, dear God, how different it might all have been.
Sherry, Your Majesty?
No, thank you. I don't drink.
Oh, all right.
It was my greatest failure.
Failure?
Peter contracted smallpox. He was isolated. Only the Empress was allowed to nurse him, never leaving his side for weeks, not even to change her gown. If he died, you see, she would have had no heir except the rightful one, Tsar Ivan, whom she had imprisoned from infancy. A monarch whose only heir is her enemy is a monarch who at best will lose her crown and at worst her head.
What of your position if Peter had died?
I was nothing. Without Peter, we were still unmarried. His death would have meant immediate return to my dreary life in Prussia.
The pox was as dread and deadly as the plague, I see.
But he miraculously recovered.
Jayne Meadows in Meeting of the Minds couldn't put on a show like that today. We're going to move on now to Don Mankiewicz, who died recently at the age of 93, part of the great Mankiewicz family. We talked about it when his brother Frank Mankiewicz died a couple of months back. Let's go through his lineage briefly. Don Mankiewicz's father was Herman Mankiewicz, the great screenwriter who wrote Citizen Kane and Pride of the Yankees. As I said, his brother was Frank Mankiewicz, RFK's press secretary. His uncle was Joseph Mankiewicz, the director, and his nephew's Ben Mankiewicz, the television host. And there are a couple more Mankiewiczes in there somewhere. Don Mankiewicz was a writer. He called himself a schmuck with an Underwood, which was Jack Warner's term for screenwriters. Wasn't as successful as his father, but he won a couple of awards. He was nominated for Academy Award in 1958 for his screenplay for I Want to Live. He did the miniseries adaptation of Profiles in Courage about President Kennedy. He has a couple of prominent television credits, including Ironside, Raymond Burr as a wheelchair detective. Let's hear the theme song from Ironside, which was written, by the way, by Quincy Jones. Theme song's a lot hipper than the show, if you ask me. And Don Mankiewicz also did some writing for Marcus Welby, MD, which was Robert Young as a nice old family doctor. That's something you don't see anymore either. Don Mankiewicz, talented writer, but hey, that wasn't Citizen Kane. We're going to move on now to Jack Ely, who died at the age of 71. And you know Jack Ely, even if you're not familiar with his name. So it's the early 60s, and Jack Ely is the lead singer of a Portland, Oregon group called the Kingsmen. And these guys are playing the local hops and bandstands. And their producer wants them to get into the studio and record a sort of a live-sounding record, and they pay $50 to record in this local studio. And they put out this record. And DJ in Boston hears it, votes it the worst record of the week. He plays it once, and the people in Boston go crazy. The record went to number 2 in the country, and it may have even gone to number 1, we don't know. But it became one of, if not the greatest garage rock records ever, one of the most covered records ever, one of the records most featured at football games and in movies, including Animal House, and the record everyone in the country was talking about in 1963, and it went on to be the only record ever investigated by J. Edgar Hoover and the FBI. Here's Jack Ely fronting the Kingsmen singing it. What exactly was Jack Ely singing there? I know what you're all thinking there. Get your minds out of the gutter. Oh yeah, you know those dirty lyrics. We all talked about those dirty lyrics growing up. Here's Jack Ely to tell you the real story of Louie, including the investigation by J. Edgar Hoover and the G-Men.
He had us run through about 8 bars or so, and it still didn't sound quite right to him. So he had a technician come in and take the mic and put it on a boom and stick it up at the ceiling. That's about a 15-foot ceiling, so the mic was hanging probably, I don't know, 18 to 24 inches off the ceiling, and I was directly under it, leaning my head back, yelling at this mic. Well, it didn't have anything to do really with how far the mic was away from me. What it really had to do with is how words get enunciated when your head's tipped all the way back and you're yelling up. Because, you see, Louie, Louie didn't come out like Louie, Louie. I would say it when I'm standing facing normal, when my head's all stretched up and back. It came out Louie, Louie. The weirdest part about the whole dirty lyrics syndrome was that, number one, it was a girl whose mother was a good friend of the wife of the governor of Indiana, who told her mom, hey, if you play this record at 33, it sounds dirty. She called up, the mother called up her friend, the wife of the governor of Indiana, and he banned it in the state of Indiana. The FBI never contacted me ever. For one thing, I got drafted into the Army not long after this. The FBI did contact Richard Berry, the original writer of the song, and he said, they sound like the original words to me. What are you talking about? So even though my inability to articulate correctly was foiled by my head leaning way back and yelling up there, the words in the ear of the hearer who had written them were very plain. It was only because no one had ever heard the song before or knew the lyrics, they sounded like they didn't make sense. Hoover didn't start investigating until after it was not only on the radio but banned in Indiana. And that prompted the FBI investigation. You see, a side effect of this was later on they started saying there's a hidden message in the song. But that prompted even more FBI, whatever the FBI does. Well, originally it wasn't that it was dirty. It was dirty if you played it at 33. Anyway, the final outcome of the whole FBI thing was that it was unintelligible at any speed. The lyrics are, it's kind of a Jamaican love song. It was actually, the man Louie was a bartender, and this sailor who'd been in Jamaica was reminiscing to this bartender after probably a few too many toddies about how he'd like to go back to Jamaica and see this girl he'd met there. And because it's done in Jamaican dialect, it's me fine little girl, she waits for me. Me catch a ship across the sea, me sail that ship by my all alone. Me never think how I may get home. Louie, Louie, oh no, me gotta go. 3 nights and days me sail at sea, me think of little girl constantly upon that ship. Me dream she there, I smelled the rose in her hair. Louie, Louie, me gotta go. Me see Jamaica, the moon above, it won't be long. Me see me love to take her in my arms again. I'll tell her I'll never leave her again. Louie, Louie, oh no, me gotta go.
Okay, so there you go. I know you don't believe it, but that's the guy who sang. He got $120 for singing it, and then he left the Kingsmen for good. A lot of covers of this baby. Thought I'd play my favorite by the Kinks. Yeah, I'd say that record influenced the Davies Brothers and the Kinks. Here's a little bit of their first #1 from 1964.
You really got me going. You got me so I don't know what I'm doing.
A couple other ironies about Louie Louie. The drummer actually did say the F word when he dropped his sticks in the middle of the record. You just can't hear it very well. And Jack Ely thought the record really was #1 on Billboard, but it was deliberately kept off by the authorities, who in a more innocent time opted for this song by the Singing Nun.
Dominique et Mécanique s'en allaient tout simplement au Dieu, pauvre et chantant. En tout chemin, en tout lieu, il ne parle que du bon Dieu, il ne parle que du bon Dieu.
That's what kept Louie Louie from #1. Hey, I gotta close on that note. Thank my producer and IT genius, Sid Taps. Normally we would have closed with Louie Louie, but I have to make a mention of Lois Lillenstein, who died at the age of 78. Nice Jewish girl from Chicago. She was part of a children's television show in Canada that played on Nickelodeon in the 80s and 90s and featured this memorable earworm song. My daughter Shana used to sing this one when she was a kid all the time.
Skinnamarink-a-dink-a-dink, Skinnamarink-a-doo, I love you. Skinnamarink-a-dink-a-dink, Skinnamarink-a-doo, I love you.
I love you in the morning and in the afternoon. I love you in the evening underneath the moon.
Skinnamarink-a-dink-a-dink, Skinnamarink-a-doo, I love you.